Welcome, everybody. Hypnotic Sunday Service. I'm Evan Baumgardner, board certified hypnotist at Elliott Bay Hypnosis here in lovely Seattle, Washington. And it's been a minute since I've done one of these, and that is because I've been busy running my Resolute Goal Manifestation workshop from January through February, and that ended just in time for me to get sick. And, it gave me a lot of time to think because I missed doing this. But part of the process of Resolute is taking a look at our goals and what we're doing to achieve those. So we've all had these moments where we set a goal, we commit to it, and then it's just push, push, push until something shifts. And then the motivation drops, the momentum just falls away, progress stalls, we just seem stuck, and we start to question ourselves. And we have to wonder, is this something I need to keep pushing at, or do I let it go? And one of the traps that people fall into, and this is something that I worked with people in Resolute on, and I go through this process myself as well, is people will struggle because we will set a goal, but then we tend to set it and forget it, and we don't go back and check in on that goal and see how it's doing and see if that goal is still in alignment with what we want, where we're going. Or resistance will come up and it'll get confusing to people because they won't know if that resistance means that, oh, well, maybe I just need to push harder at this, or if it's time to pivot to something else. And identifying that and recognizing how our goals are feeling in our body. And we do this by checking in on them. This is why, I teach people to write them down. And there's specific ways on how to write it that I teach in Resolute. But write it down and check in with them on a regular basis and meditate on those goals and notice how it feels in your body. And we do want some resistance to come up. We need resistance for growth. Like, if you think about exercising, the way to build muscles is through resistance, and pushing through that. But if there's too much weight, then it doesn't work. It becomes counterproductive. So, and that's at the time when you need to pivot. But it's important to check in and see how it feels in your body. And also, how it feels is going to depend on where you are personally at in your journey in relation to your goals. If you want, like, all right, it's March 2nd today, which is hard to believe, but if you want to make $1 million in March, but all you make is 10,000 a month. And when you think about going from 10,000 to 1 million, how is that going to feel in your body when you think about, like, how is this possible? It might come up heavy, like there's no way kind of thing. Well, that's accepting where you're at. And maybe you can't do that in March, but what are the steps you can start taking to get yourself into a position where that's going to be possible using compounding interest, right? So we only have three resources that matter, right? And that's time, energy, and money. These these are, in my opinion, the resources that we have to use with, the only ones that matter. And they do have an impact on achieving our goals, and not just achieving our goals, but setting them and bringing them into reality. So if we look at time, that is the only resource you can't get back. We only have a finite amount of time on this planet. And that's something that's important in goals, because if you are always busy, but you're not making progress, you are using that resource of time in the wrong place. And that's something you'll need to adjust. Energy is the next one. Without energy to actually do things, even if you have an abundance of time, it's useless without the energy to make something happen. And if your goal is draining you instead of getting you charged up, and this is different, like, you want a challenge in there. A goal should be challenging. But if it's not a challenge and it's something that you find draining, and it's sucking your energy away, something's off, and you need to reevaluate that. And then money, the last resource. This is the most flexible resource, but again, it follows time and energy. And if you are running out of money, it's often because something is misaligned somewhere, and that resource has been allocated improperly. So we can spend money to save time, to save energy, if we do it right. We can spend time and energy to gain money, and we can use time and money to gain energy. So they all interact with each other, and they all go back and forth. And these are the resources, these are the tools on how we meet our goal. And the trick is to always keep it in balance. And it's it definitely can be a lot harder, or a lot easier said than done. And that's why we need to always be reevaluating our goals and being completely honest with ourselves. And again, most importantly, noticing how it feels in our body. If you're looking at your goal and it's creating this horrible pit in your stomach and making you just feel sick about it and overwhelmed, something needs to change. And this is how we need to use these resources to identify when we need to continue pushing, embracing the discomfort, embracing the resistance, and, learning to love it and working through it, versus when we need to pivot to something else, when we need to reallocate our resources, readjust our goals into something that is in better alignment with where we are at, so we can get to where we want to go. Um, if you are low on one resource, it doesn't matter what, like, oh, well, I don't have much money, but I'm really passionate about starting this business or something. And when you think about it, you feel excitement, it's that sense of like, yeah, this gets me pumped up, and there's momentum there. And it doesn't even have to be a lot of momentum, but just like a sense of curiosity and wonder. And that's what we're really going for, is that this playfulness, right? When we think about our goals, where it's like, yeah, yeah, I can see that. I enjoy that. Feels good. Even if it seems so far off in the distance that it's hard to picture, but that's where you want to go. And there's going to be that sense of wonder and curiosity that where you're like you're turned on for it, you're excited for it, and it makes you feel good. That's when you keep pushing, even if everything around you is like, man, I don't know how I'm going to balance all of this, but you know what, this is what's happening. At that point, you're not like wanting a goal. You've chosen it and you are moving towards it. And it's a matter of just keeping that momentum going and knowing that on the way to a big goal, there's going to be a lot of smaller goals that come up along the way that you're going to need to get to level up to get to that big one. And that is often where people will get stuck because they won't see everything in between to get to that big one. And that can blindside us, and that can be a difficult thing. But again, if we are still have that sense of wonder about it, and if we lose it, how do we get it back? Yeah, and that's when we want to pivot and try something different, or just step back and give ourselves a little bit of grace. Because if our goals are constantly leaving us feeling drained, feeling stuck, or like, oh, well, I'm out of options, I don't know what to do, instead of being challenged, in a positive way with that good resistance, where it's like you're not getting resistance, you're just getting crushed. At that point, you need to do something to pivot and find a different strategy because something has gone out of alignment. And only you can decide if, that goal that you originally set out on is still worth pursuing or if it takes you in a different direction. Either one of those can happen, and it's okay. It's okay if it does, because I mean, you're still gaining the experience, right? And moving into someplace else. I didn't set out, in my life to be a hypnotist. That wasn't my dream as a child. But all the other things I've done, all the other things I've tried gave me skill sets that translate to being an effective hypnotist, to being able to help people achieve their goals, free themselves from anxiety, all of the wonderful things hypnosis can do for people, right? That it's everything that came before that that makes me good at what I do, even though this wasn't what I initially set out to do with my life as a child. But it's where I ended up, and I absolutely love it. And there's a reason for that because it was in pursuit of a goal. And the goal was the same. The outcome was not not the way I originally envisioned it, but the outcome's the same. So it's like still reach that. It might look a little different, and that's okay. And but it all goes to checking in about how the goal feels in our body. So instead of just taking a look at your goal, right? And saying, "Oh, well, I've gone this far," whatever, looking at raw numbers, raw data and everything. Not to say that that stuff isn't important because they are metrics. This is analytics to let you know kind of where things are at. But the most important thing is to check in and notice how your body reacts to it. When you think about, like, oh, okay, here's something I could do to reach this goal. And if you think about that and your body just shuts down, like, kind of going into that protective, closed off space, then you need to stop and go, "Oh, okay, something is a little out of whack here." Because you should be open to it. You should be feeling good. And if you're closing off, you're not feeling good about it. So you really want to check in on how your body reacts to the idea of these goals, to the idea of the steps that you need to take to get there. And yes, there's going to be some discomfort involved. And we need that. We need to learn to become comfortable with discomfort because we need that resistance. We need that tension in order to reach our goals. It's like a workout. It's tension that leads to growth. And that's what we want. But if it feels like it's dragging us down or it's dead weight, that it doesn't serve a purpose, that's when we need to reevaluate. And I mean, the body, this is why it's so important to do grounding exercises, and especially meditation and self hypnosis on a daily basis. I cannot stress this enough because our body is going to know what's going on long before our mind starts to rationalize it and feed it to us. So if we're having a day where we're feeling heavy and exhausted or like resentful towards the things that we have to do, then that goal might be out of alignment or something is out of alignment. Maybe we need to step back from what we've been doing, not push as hard, and find a different way because you really want it to be flowing like water, and able to adapt to things that happen, because there will be times where it's like, okay, you might think that going one way is the way to go, but then, oh, nope, road's here. Road ends here. It's a dead end. I need to go the other way. And how we're reactive to that in pursuit of our goals is very important because if we are in that being like water space, we flow and we adapt to it, and we find a new path to get to where we want to go. If we don't have that sort of flexibility, then we're going to feel heavy, we're going to feel exhausted, we're going to get resentful, all of these things that aren't going to be productive. They're going to start draining our resources, while we're trying to push on a granite boulder that isn't going anywhere. And at that point, it's better to step back, find a way to get in alignment again, because doing that is gonna knock you out. You want to feel good in your body about it. And so that's the other important part, is the difference between that sort of productive resistance, that good tension that we need, and hitting a dead end. So resistance that means you want to keep going at this. It's feeling challenged, but again, you're maintaining your interest. You're keeping that sense of wonder of curiosity, of playfulness. It energizes you when you think about it, when you picture it. And it's still a challenge. And it's going to take time to get there from where you are, but that's okay because you're having fun with it. There's still work involved, but it's that good kind. It's that good kind of stress. It's the good kind of tension that makes you stronger as you pursue that goal. Um, you might get frustrated too, but it's temporary, and there's still progress that comes along with that, even if you have to do something frustrating. And yeah, there might be a little fear of failure. What if this doesn't work out? But when you look at that, whatever that fear of failure, and it's perfectly natural to feel that. There's nothing wrong with feeling that. We just want that desire to succeed to outweigh any sort of fear, because then we're moving up into the courage that it takes to do what needs to be done is greater than the fear that you're feeling about if it doesn't happen. If that fear is too great, again, we need to reevaluate things. If you're running into the sort of resistance that means that you need to pivot or even let go of something, then that's going to be feeling constantly exhausted or just like a sense of dread when it comes to looking at your goals. If you're feeling that, why do you want to keep chasing it? Your body's going to try to move you away from it. That's what it's signaling to you. um, Even if you're making consistent efforts and you're not seeing any meaningful progress, you need to look at what you're doing and you need to reevaluate things. Like, maybe this isn't the best place. Maybe I'm not there. That doesn't mean you have to give up on the entire goal, but like where you're at, like that's a pivot point. I need to step back, reevaluate, and do something else instead of just trying to push and not get anywhere. If it's not working, don't keep doing the same thing that doesn't work. If you end up feeling like you have to force yourself to do things, that's another sign. Again, like, there's hard work involved in reaching our goals, especially if they're lofty, ambitious goals. However, there's still a sense of fun involved in reaching them. Even if you're working hard, it doesn't feel like work. If you feel like you have to force yourself to do it, you need to reevaluate. And another thing that, this was something in my workshop that came up a lot, and is if people feel like they don't have enough of those three resources, if, oh, I don't have these, how do I keep moving towards my goal? And if we start and we look at time, and that if you feel like you don't have enough time to do something, the issue is, most likely focus. So finding a place where you can take small, consistent actions and letting that build, letting compounding interest take over on that is the best way to start getting your time in alignment and building that resource up. With energy, if you're feeling burnout, Hypnosis is great, but you need to rest. You need to either you need to take a pause, give yourself a bit of grace, maybe change how you're working, change your routine. Like my morning routine has changed dramatically since the end of 2024 and going into 2025, and it's still changing. Yeah, I don't know where it's going to end up at, but it's definitely not like it was before, and that's interesting to me. Um, but it's important to be adaptable to that. Again, and money, the biggest issue that people have with resources, right? If that is low, then you need to be strategic. You need to slow down and really be strategic with how you're using your money. It is a form of energy, after all. But panicking about that will lead to making bad decisions that will hold you back. So being grounded is very important, and building up that energy and time and using that to generate money is the best way. People don't like to hear that because it's not the not the easiest way to do it, but that's what it takes. And having a space where you can think, and this is like taking time to do something for yourself. This is self-care. If you look at Miyamoto Musashi, famous samurai philosopher, never lost a battle, knows everything about discipline. Like has the earth ring as one of those rings of discipline where you need to handle your environment first and change that, and then everything can start to fall into place with that. But maintaining that balance, having that, if your place is cluttered, your mind is going to be cluttered, and that's going to start draining your resources very fast. um so going through a lot of this stuff and working with people during the last Resolute workshop, I was taking a look at my own goals because I'm doing the whole process along with everybody else. That's why I love doing those workshops live. Um, but I was at a point where I'm like, okay, it's the weekend. I'm doing a day long workshop, every week, and then I had these live streams, and I had clients seeing. So it became this kind of like I only have so much energy, and there are other things that I need to do for myself. So it was like, do I keep pushing? Do I let everything sort of fall apart, or do I take my own advice from the Resolute goal setting workshop and take a pause, look at my goals, take a step back, reassess where I'm directing my resources, and pivot from there, change things from there. And doing that, like especially in the context of the workshop, it gave me a much better understanding because here I'm doing it real time for everyone to see of when to pivot, when to keep going, when things feel stuck. And I had to rediscover some of that curiosity. I was kind of surprised because I do enjoy coming on here and talking to you and doing the Sunday service live streams here. But yeah, I'm like, wow, there are goals in my personal life that I was not achieving things that were, I was letting slide that I did not want to let slide. And then professionally, the things that make me excited for this job, like working with clients, teaching people my systems, you know, that is that still gives me that sense of wonder and developing new programs. And I made that choice where it was like, I'm going to take a step back from doing these as often, which is a pivot because last year I'm like every week doing a Sunday service, and I did. And then it became time to pivot. Now it's like I want to make more workshops. I want to make content, videos on other things. I want to create programs. This whole parallel synchronization hypnosis program I've been developing, that excites me because that is super fun for me for the work I do and super beneficial for my clients. So that's the stuff that really gets me excited. So it's like I need to focus more on that because again, we have a limited amount of time and we have so much energy. So where did I want to put that? And that became, okay, I'm going to do a pivot here. I'm stepping back from one thing that I do enjoy, but to focus on the other things that are really exciting, that are more in alignment with where I'm at now than where I was a year ago. And that can really change, from month to month. And, I suggest that with goals, like checking in at least quarterly on the big ones. And we have like smaller goals on the way, check in weekly with them as we go through and see what's happening. Because the biggest thing is we always need to be constantly reevaluating and looking at our goals because they're going to update, they're going to change as we're moving towards one. We're building experience. So if you set a goal and you're here and you have all this stuff in, if you're not getting here, you're not making any progress. And maybe that's when this needs reevaluated. And if you're here, you get to here on your goals, well, you don't need to keep working on the stuff that's down there. So that is the important part of goal setting. So like the things I want you to walk away with today, if nothing else, is check in with your goals. See what is draining you versus what is energizing you. What is getting you excited? What's playful? Look for that. What creates that sense of wonder that's like, yeah, yeah, it puts a smile on your face just thinking about it. Find that energizing thing and look at that. If something is draining you, go, well, all right, this is there's something that needs to be adjusted there. Um, assess your three resources. Take an inventory, and if you feel like you're lacking in there, is this something that's temporary, or is it a sign that you need to shift to something else entirely? And find out, like, again, checking in with your goals. If something is draining you, is probably draining your resources too. So adjusting that, I mean, the bleed can come from either way, but usually adjusting one's going to, free up resources. And then decide whether you need to keep pushing or whether you need to pivot away. And if it's if you're just being afraid, like, oh, well, this isn't the most comfortable thing to me, and you know it's temporary, then you want to keep going at it. That you want the good tension. You need tension, and you need to push through the tension. But if it's too much, if it's too heavy, if it causes you to shut down when you think about it and close off instead of being open, then you need to adjust. But the key is identifying how it feels in your body, because our body knows first before it sends it to our conscious mind for rationalizing it and and justifying and explaining everything away. The body is operating on instinct, and it knows first. So remember, you just because you're feeling tension, that doesn't mean you have to quit. You just have to realign with it. And when you're in alignment with your goals, that next step becomes clear. And sometimes, in order to make those big long-term gains, we need to take a step back and do something that maybe feels counterintuitive in order to readjust and kind of function as a catapult to take us to that next level and be able to blast right through any resistance that comes up. So, like I always say, there are no such thing as problems. There are only situations. So, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. And until next time, I'll be seeing you.